What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's RBC Canadian Open. It is going to be a sprint. The next couple of weeks are going to be crazy. Not only do we have this event, but the Live Golf event is teeing off for the first time on Friday. That's a 3-round event, so we're going to have some players out there. And then you know how this works. The week before a major championship, the U.S. Open conversation is going to creep into this week, and I'll be at BetRivers. I'm very excited to get out there, see everybody, see a major championship. It's going to be a ton of fun. Hopefully, lots of great stuff coming for you on the channel, so please subscribe, like this video. We're closing in on like 20,000 subscribers, which is mind-boggling to me that we ever got to this point, so I appreciate it. Join the movement. Let's do it. Let's talk through this week's course, because remember, we have not played this event since 2019. 2 years we missed 2020, we missed 2021, COVID, and then the impending travel restrictions, but we are back in Canada. We're going to St. George's Golf and Country Club. Let's take a little bit of a deeper look at the golf course. So I don't have a key stats page for this week, which should be obvious, right? The last time we played here was in 2010. Since then, every green has been redone. There's been work done to this place. So even if I wanted to go back and use the 2010 data, which I don't want to use dozen-year-old data, it probably wouldn't even be good anymore. So let's take a look at this like it's a course we've never seen. So St. George's, it's a Stanley Thompson design. It has been the greens were redone by Tom Doak a couple of years ago, and what you're looking at right now is the official scorecard for this week. And when you look at this, it's a little bit strange, and I kind of covered this a bit on the early fun tournament preview that I did over the weekend for this event. But it's a par 70. Only 7,014 yards. So you're like, okay, that's kind of short. More on that in a second. And then you realize, well, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 par 3s on this course. There's 3 par 5s. That's how they get to 70. You go out in 34, in 36. And then you start looking at some of the yardages and you're like, okay, well, the 5 3s, 4 of them are over 200 yards. 1 of them is 146. And then the par 5s, 3 of them, all between 520H, very short, and 560, still pretty short. So it's kind of bizarre. I think the 4s are going to create a situation where you're still hitting long iron into them. I don't think this is necessarily like a driver wedge course. And when you start looking at the elevation and the undulation from the pictures and from some of the flyovers and things like that, I think this is going to play longer than 7,000 yards suggests it does. That doesn't mean the short hitters are out of it, because accuracy, I believe, is going to be pretty critical. I just think that this is not necessarily as short as it appears with kind of the layout and what I would expect to come out of it. And we can just look at some of the photos here. And what you'll notice, I mean, this looks rather lush, right? So you've got these tree-lined fairways, right? Basically everything around this golf course is fairly tree-lined. The other thing you'll notice is that all of these greens are very well protected by bunkers, especially the par 3s. Look at this par 3, the 6th. One, it's hard to count, but it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4-ish, maybe 5 separate bunkers. Every corner of these greens protected by bunkers. Same thing here on number 8. It was the same thing up on number 4, what we saw earlier. Just very well protected. So I think if you are going to miss some of these greens, which are very small, 4,000 square feet on average, which makes them some of the smallest that we have on the PGA Tour, you're going to be playing out of the bunkers a lot. So this is not only this week, but next week, the U.S. Open, Brookline. We're in a run of small greens. 4,000 square feet on average is tiny. I think Pebble Beach is 3,600. Let me confirm that. Pebble Beach is 3,500 square feet on average, which are the smallest that we have. So you're talking about 4,000 square feet, very, very small. The tour average is like 6,000. And then we're going to go to Brookline, and Brookline's going to be just microscopic greens as well. So get used to these small greens. You're going to see them a lot. So when I start looking through the photos, when I start reading the reviews, when I start reading what the goal was for the redesign and the original architecture, you're going to want to play out of the fairway. The rough 3.5, 4 inches is kind of what we're looking at. Kentucky bluegrass, and being able to hit these small greens is going to be key. I also think this is going to look great on television, by the way. There is some visual, visual warfare from Stanley Thompson here. I mean, there are some shots and one of the par fives, let's see if I can find it, where, even like the layup is kind of hard, and you're going to have to lay up. Everybody's going to have to lay up. It's going to be hard to go 4 and 2. I mean, it's just like a very strategic golf course. I don't know if it's going to show well on television, but I'm really excited to see St. George's. I think it's going to be splendid. So just to recap, playing out of the fairway, certainly going to be handy. I think guys that play well on small greens, which we can look at in a second, or guys that are able to hit their irons very well, small proximity guys, or having kind of a really strong short game, specifically in the bunkers, I think is going to be critical this week. These guys are really good, so I imagine they're going to shoot probably 15 to 20 under par, but I don't think this gets too outrageous, especially because it's a par 70. But the fives are kind of gettable, but the threes might be hard. I'm fascinated by this. I think it's going to be really, really fun. Let's take a turn and dive into the cheat sheet here. All right, the cheat sheet, along with everything else you see, is available on my website, RickRunGood.com. Check it out because I think you'll enjoy it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 golfers, 10K or more. Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Cam Smith, Shane Lowry, Sam Burns. Okay. A lot to look through here. Talked about for the last couple of weeks that Scotty Scheffler, that one bad start at the PGA Championship was fine. And then, of course, he goes on to finish runner-up in a playoff. So I think being even to the field on Scotty has been a relatively awesome game plan for the last 4 months. He's been great. There's no reason to think that's not going to continue. I think he's fairly priced. I don't think I really have a hot take on him. Justin Thomas coming off the miscut right after the PGA Championship victory. Again, kind of fine. The bottom of this range is a little bit more intriguing because I think there's some interesting value here. So let me point out a couple of things, then you guys obviously can decide how you want to spend your own money here. But Sam Burns is $10,000. If you've been watching along, I'm such a big fan of Sam Burns. And I believe that he has all of the makings of a modern PGA Tour winner. We talked about that a lot. I did a 300 yards to unknown episode that looked deep into kind of the types of golfers that win a lot. And one of the main profiles was be really good on approach, be a really good putter, because when those two things combine, you win. And Sam Burns has proven that. What I also like about Sam Burns, and I've had, interactions with him, I've had him on the First Cut podcast, very low key, even keel guy, not going to get too up from a victory, not going to get too down from a missed cut. And you can kind of see this. So look at his last couple of wins. The start immediately after. So he wins the Sanderson Farms, finishes T14 at the Shriners. The only thing he did wrong there was putt poorly. The rest of his game was awesome. Remember that Valspar victory? And then he almost followed it up with a win the very next week, or his very next start, it was 2 weeks later at the AT&T Byron Nelson. And then his first win, which I've got to go a little bit further back for, but not that far. Or wait, did I miss one? 1, 2. Oh, sorry. His most recent win, or no, it's 2 wins ago, Valspar, when he defended, he wins and then missed the cut at the Masters. So I don't know what you want to do with that. He had struggled at major championships. Basically, that 20th at the PGA Championship a couple weeks ago was his best major championship start, I believe, of his career. So he generally plays well and can contend immediately after a win. So I don't have any concerns there. And then, you start to look at the course breakdown. The 4 long par threes. Well, that is an area of Sam Burns' game where he ranks very highly on the PGA Tour. Those shorter par fives, that's actually another area of the game that Sam Burns really plays well on. So I think we have a situation where you've got the cheapest guy in the $10,000 range whom people might say, he just won. He's not going to compete again. He's not going to contend again. And it's unlikely that he wins again. But does he have a good week? I think he could have a really good week just with the way that everything is setting up. Finally, happy to see Shane Lowry getting a little bit of love here. So if you go to the power rankings, last 50 rounds of every golfer in this field, Shane Lowry is number one. He's getting 2.1 strokes to the field. It's better than Scotty Scheffler. Now, I will note, not all of those rounds in the last 50 are PGA Tour rounds for Shane Lowry. So he's got a little bit of a smaller sample size, but you can see where I'm going with this. He's just been absolutely phenomenal. And when you start to compare him against the rest of the $10,000 range, well, what does he do well? He hits more fairways than everybody else in this 10K range. In fact, he hits more fairways than anybody else priced $8,300 and up. He is not long off the tee, but he's not short either. He gains a yard per round or per drive, basically on average, to the rest of the field, depending on where he's playing. That's all leveled out. So he is technically longer than the field average, and he is more accurate than anybody else besides Brendan Todd, $83 and $8,300 and above, which I think is going to be a really good combination. I actually like him a lot for the US Open as well, because there's a lot of creative, tricky spots around the greens. This is going to be really reliant on kind of the sand play, the around the green play. I know he's played well at this event before, but it doesn't really matter because it wasn't at this golf course, but maybe some good vibes going back to Canada. So already I'm like, wow, the bottom of this 10K range, when you start to factor in maybe what the perception is going to be, I think a lot of people are going to go get Scotty, go get Rory, go get JT. Maybe the 10K range is where we kind of want to focus our attention, or the bottom of the 10K range is kind of where we want to focus our attention. The $9,000 range is fun. Let me deep dive Matt Fitzpatrick for a second. He's $9,900, and I know what everybody's thinking. Oh my God, Ricky just burned everybody last week. And he sure did with a missed cut, but let me also show you this. This is the live leaderboard, so this updates during action. I'm just going to sort this all 4 rounds by, I think it's the ball striking categories that I want here. Yeah. Okay. Matt Fitzpatrick is here. He gained 4.6 strokes in the ball striking categories. That's off the tee plus approach last week. He missed the cut. That's a counting stat, right? So when you look at totals, he missed the cut, and he was like 17th in ball striking, which is crazy. So what went wrong? Well, he lost 7.5 strokes with the putter, which is, I'm sure, the worst in the field last week. Well, maybe not. Brandon Wu lost 9.7, but Brandon Wu played 2 more rounds. So Brandon Wu putted poorly for 4 rounds. Matt Fitzpatrick only putted poorly for 2. Is that a concern? I'd argue not that much. Matt Fitzpatrick has a very, very bizarre history at the Memorial. If you look up his 2 worst putting performances ever, they both come at Muirfield Village. He lost 7.5 strokes last week. That was his worst putting performance ever. He lost 6.2 in 2019 at Muirfield Village. His next worst is 3.2 strokes gain loss. So you're telling me a guy who loses at his worst 2 strokes per tournament or 3 strokes per tournament with the putter loses 6 and 7.5 at the same course. Something is going on there. Now, what's also even more weird, as if this couldn't get any more bizarre, he also gained like 8 strokes one year. Yeah, 2020, he gained 8 strokes putting at Muirfield Village. This is a very bizarre set of results. I can't imagine there are a lot of guys with 2 sets of results that are like 15 strokes apart in the putting category. So I'm willing to chalk it up and say Matt Fitzpatrick lost a ton of strokes putting at a place that he has done that before, and maybe it's not a particularly great spot for him and when he gets on the wrong side of it. So I'm willing to kind of forgive quickly here based on all the other stuff that I saw. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. 9,900 feels quite strong, but he's been kind of a top 10 machine. And then this field does start to weaken quite quickly after you get to maybe, I don't know, Terrell Hatton at 9,500. I think there's kind of a bigger drop off here. The guy that really worries me And I love HV3. And I was a big time investor at the Charles Schwab Challenge when he was 50-1 and, leading on the back nine. The problem with Varner, there's a lot of problems. But the big one is, can you trust him on a Sunday? Right? I mean, this is, and it's not, the elephant in the room is that he has not only just not won, but he has ejected from tournaments. And when you go, it would have been one thing if he did what Davis Riley did at the Charles Schwab Challenge, which was lead the event, make a couple of sloppy bogeys, and then finish T4, T7, or whatever he did. It was lead the event, make a couple sloppy bogeys, make a triple, make a double, finish 27th. And that's not like that rare. It's a small sample size, but that worries me. And at $9,700, man, it's kind of a big ask. I hope he pulls one off. I'd be thrilled if he does, but man, that's a big ask. Corey Connors is next, $9,600. What do you not love about Corey Connors, right? We were very quick to forgive him for that missed cut that he had where he lost 4 strokes on approach at the PGA Championship. He gains 8 at the Memorial. Boom, we're back, baby. Look at this. Look at this stretch of golf. And I'm talking about with the putter from Corey Connors. He has gained strokes putting. Corey Connors has gained strokes putting in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his last 8. In the 3 that he's lost, he has never lost more than a stroke putting. So he is now, since the Players' Championship, which was 3 months ago, he's a positive putter. Actually, if you go back even further than that, you go back to the start of the season, he's basically a positive putter, right? That's really good, tangible gains for a guy that I know, little inside tip here, he's been out at St. George's last couple weeks. He's been out there. He's been getting his practice reps in, just awesome off the tee. Let's go. Corey Connors, he's probably going to be popular. I completely get it. The last guy here is Tyrrell Hatton, who, I think it's worthy of a deep dive because we don't spend a lot of time talking about him. And I think this might be a little bit of a better setup for him. So he is $9,500. My concern is his accuracy off the tee. If he can keep it in play, I think you get a guy who generally hits his long irons very well and can putt really well. And he's basically a positive across the board. This is actually his worst driving season of his career. And it's really because he's just missing a ton of fairways. He's just playing out of the rough much too often. So that does concern me. But you start looking at some of the other places like TPC Potomac. He finished T37, gained 3 strokes off the tee there. You've got to be exact there off the tee. RBC Heritage worries me. Loses 3.6 strokes off the tee there. You've got to be exact there. So it's like, oh boy, what version of Tyrrell Hatton are we going to get? If we get the one that drives it well, I think we get a guy who probably finishes inside the top 15, which is kind of what he's been up to fairly often in this year. So I'm quite optimistic, and I don't think anybody's rushing to fire Tyrrell Hatton into their lineups, especially if Corey Connors is the most popular guy here in the $9,000 range. I think Hatton ends up being a pretty fair pivot, and you're just hoping that he finds a week where he hits more fairways than usual, which is not entirely out of the realm of possibilities, especially if he clubs down maybe a little bit. Maybe he can take 3-wood in some spots. I don't know. We'll see, but I don't hate that. The rest of the 9K range, it's fine. I'm kind of warming on Tony Finau long term. I think Adam Hadwin, for as good as he's been this year, will be too popular because he's going to get the Canadian narrative. He's going to get the ace narrative from last week, which I know is funny, but it's true. I think he'll be a little bit more popular than he should be. We'll see, especially on the Wednesday live chat. 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. We'll have ownership projections. We'll have all that stuff. My assumption is Adam Hadwin is going to be very popular, or at least more popular than he should be. The rest of the 9K, it's fine. I'm a pretty big Chris Kirk fan, pretty big Keith Mitchell fan in general. I think it's fair. Before we jump into the 8K range, I wanted to do a couple of things. I wanted to look at a couple of trends or whatever. And I also want to remind you to subscribe, hit the like button, all that fun stuff. Let's start with the Holy Grail. We'll go to the stats. I want to look at sand saves. I think this is going to be important. These are just microscopic greens, and the greens are incredibly protected with bunkers. So I think this is going to be a factor this week. Justin Thomas, number 1 in this field, 4th overall this season. Mike Weir's number 2. That's probably like one event, quite honestly. Ryan Armour, Matt Fitzpatrick, David Hearn. Then you get to Wesley Bryan. There's that Shane Lowry guy again. I like the bottom of that 10K range. Adam Hadwin, Patrick Reed, Rory McIlroy, also on the list. So you can scroll through this, check this out at RickRunGood.com. The worst guys, let's just do that too. The worst guys, and actually I'll do it this way. Sorry. The worst guys are like Satoshi Kodaira, Cam Champ. I'm trying to find some notables here. Some of these guys are just like the worst players in the field. Let me find some notables here towards the bottom of the list. Poston, Fratelli, these guys aren't really all that notable. Justin Rose is 137th. Boy. Who would be the first guy that Finau? Okay, Finau would be like the first guy we're super willing to play. He's like 50%. He's ranked 101st. Cam Smith, actually not great out of bunkers, 95th. Corey Connors isn't particularly great either, so his path is going to be hit a lot of fairways. So that's one way to look at it. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to stay here on the Holy Grail, and I wanted to do small greens. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to plug in square footage of greens. Actually, I think I have a button for it. I do small greens. So this is basically like less than tour average. I think it's 5,000 square feet or smaller is the way that I define small. And then what I'll do is I'll just look at like the last 5 years. I don't want to go back too far because again, if you start, there's other things I could do that for, but when you start doing that, you get a situation where, Matt Kuchar is the best player all the time, or like Jason Day, or, Justin Rose is the best player. So let's just go back to the last 5 years on small greens. The number 1 player, oh boy, Rory McIlroy, 89 rounds, 1.72. Patrick Reed. Okay, so that also kind of tracks as well. Patrick, why is Patrick Reed gaining 1.3 strokes per round on small greens? It's not because he's an elite iron player. It's because he's an elite around the green player. So look at this. Even on these courses, you can see he's only gaining 0.2 strokes on approach, but he is gaining a half a stroke around the greens and 0.4 of a stroke putting, because that is how he's making it up. Almost a full stroke in the short game categories on courses with small greens. Scotty Scheffler's up there. Did I mention Justin Rose? Justin Rose, Scotty Scheffler, Tony Finau, Shane Lowry. Those are the only guys who are gaining a stroke or more per round on small greens. Then you get to Justin Thomas and Matt Fitzpatrick and Sam Burns and Harold Varner III. Maybe Varner just, I don't know. It would not be the worst spot in the world for him to win. It wouldn't be. But, boy, it's a little bit scary. Corey Connors kind of up there as well. 116 rounds, gaining a half a stroke per round. Terrell Hatton. So this is kind of a really fun way to look at it. If you do come and sort it by this way, note the guys that do it via the ball striking and note the guys that do it via the short game. I mean, look at Justin Thomas, right? On these small greens, he's a loser in the short game categories, primarily with the putter, but he's a little bit better than average around the green. But look at the ball striking. Gains 1.2 strokes in the ball striking category. So his path on small greens is never miss a green, right? That's JT's path. It's really fun to kind of look at it that way. So when you go back to the 8K range, there were a couple of names that popped up there, right? Patrick Reed, Justin Rose. Reed was very popular last week at the Memorial. I actually think maybe this week and next week, the U.S. Open are probably two better spots for him. I told you guys I've made 2 bets up to this point for the U.S. Open, which I probably could have waited, but I just was thinking about it and I just went and bet it anyway. So I bet Patrick Reed and I bet Daniel Berger before last week. So I think that Berger number has gotten shorter because he played well at the Memorial. And Patrick Reed, I haven't seen what his number has done. But those are 2 guys that I think set up fairly well for the country club. So I like kind of the next 2 weeks for Patrick Reed. And then you kind of look at, Johnny Vegas is here. He's 8,500. He's won this event twice, but never at this golf course, obviously. And, played well at the Memorial, except for his final round. So if you go back and look at this, so let's just do everybody in this field for the first 3 rounds last week. Johnny Vegas he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 4th in strokes gained total for Johnny Vegas through the first 3 rounds. Round 4 was not good. Round 4 was really not good for Johnny Vegas. It was one of the worst rounds out there. Yeah, he lost 6.7 strokes to the field, the 4th worst mark of anybody out there. But it's not like other guys didn't shoot bad scores. Cam Young shot an 84. Cam Young, who's been a dominant, shot an 84. So again, one round never does it for me, especially considering he lost nearly 5 strokes putting. He actually gained strokes on approach in the final round, lost 5 putting. That doesn't bother me. And I think that maybe the T37 does not really tell the full story of how good Johnny Vegas was for the vast majority of last week. Rasmus Højgaard is back. Let me pull up his golfer profile here because he's a 21-year-old Dane who plays primarily on the DP World Tour. Now, he has not missed a cut, I believe, this entire calendar year. Let me just confirm that. Anywhere in the world, yes. His last missed cut was the Shriners in Las Vegas in October. So he has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events since then. Hasn't missed a cut. He's got 2 top 16 finishes in his last 3 starts on the DP World Tour. He's played 2 of those during that stretch, 2 PGA Tour events. Corrales Punta Cana, he finished 6th, and Valero Texas Open, he finished T18. Very good putting week that week, which is a little bit unsustainable, but I like to see the 2 good finishes there coming over and playing, and he's used to playing the weekend. He's a very good, talented, raw golfer that I think we're going to learn a lot more about in the coming years. Okay, so we've had a couple of drop-offs here, right? We're in the 7K range now, and I feel like the field has dropped off once, it's maybe dropped off another time, and now we're kind of here to the 7K range. And there's a lot of names. It's our first massive range, and I want to just try to start figuring out the best players here. So there's a couple of different ways we can do this. We can just sort the cheat sheet here, which is what I love about this. So like just go purely strokes gained total over the last 24 rounds or whatever number of rounds you want. Aaron Rai, number 1. Shouldn't be that much of a surprise. David Lipsky, number 2. Start to look at how they're doing it though. And for Rai and Lipsky, they lose distance off the tee, but they gain fairways. That's pretty good. I think this week I'd much prefer that as opposed to Dean Burmeister, who isn't Dean Burmeister playing in Live? He shouldn't be in this field on DraftKings. Am I right about that? Or is that a rumor? Let me confirm this field real quick. Okay, he is not in the Live golf field. So I guess he is still in this field. I don't know if that was a rumor that I heard or what, but I thought Burmeister was going. But anyway, my point being, I prefer the fairways gained side of things. Like if we can only have one, I'd prefer the fairways gained and lose a little bit of distance than be a big bomber like Burmeister, but spray it and lose, 8% of the fairways, right? So I kind of like the way that Rai and Lipsky are doing it as well, and you can see it's kind of turning into some results. So we can look through it that way, strokes gained total. The other way that I would kind of want to look through it, we could just do, oh boy, there's so many things we could do. We could do, like, I kind of want to look at the trends too, see who's kind of hot. So this is how to look at golfers against their baseline. So JT Poston, very, very hot right now. He's gaining over his last 24 rounds, a stroke per round to his 100 round baseline, and he's doing it in a pretty good way. Strokes gained approach, a little bit with the putter. That's not a surprise. JT Poston, generally a very good putter. That's a good sign. Who else in this 7K range? Peter Malnati, but he's doing it almost exclusively via the short game categories. In fact, he's actually losing on approach to his 100 round baseline. That's a bit of a concern. Who else in the 7Ks? Champ is here. Again, the majority of those gains coming via the putter. That's not great. Scott Piercy's probably doing it in the best way, almost exclusively in the 2 ball striking categories. Let's deep dive Piercy. That trend line deserves a bit of a deeper dive here. Scott Piercy, what have you been up to? Missing cuts. Yeah, okay. So this is kind of classic Piercy. When Piercy's at his best, he gains strokes on approach and gives them back and then some with the putter, which is kind of what we're seeing. So even though and this is a little bit inflated because he's gaining approach to his 100 round baseline, but that includes all of these horrible starts, which aren't really on brand for Scott Piercy. So he's coming out of like a horrible stretch. That looks a bit like fool's gold, actually. And it's not even turning into great results. He's missed a ton of cuts. So that is a little bit of fool's gold. That's why we deep dive this. What else we got here? Just in the 7K range. Adam Long. Yeah, Adam Long's been really good. gaining a stroke almost via the tee to green categories. Okay, he also popped up on the cheat sheet as well when we were looking through. So Adam Long was here, sixth best player in this field over the last 24 rounds out of the 7K range. So that's exciting too. And he's an accurate player. He's an accurate player. There was something else about Long. Where else did I see Long? Oh, I bet it was over here. Okay. Yes. Okay. This is Jock Market. This is Stock Market DFS. So Adam Long, despite not, he's missed 3 cuts and he's got a couple of top 25 finishes, a couple of top 35 finishes, which is not winning you a whole lot in other places. He's won you money in 60% of his cash markets in his last 10. His average IPO, $3.75 a share. His average payout closer to $4 a share. So it's like an 11% ROI. It's not making you rich, but it's better than the market. And you can see here are the payouts from last week. So Aaron Wise, who did not win the golf tournament, was $5 a share last week in the IPO, finished at $20 a share. So you made $15 a share on a guy who lost the golf tournament by 4 strokes. That's pretty good. That's what I like about Jock Market here. Joe Idoni and myself, we do a power hour every Wednesday night, 8:15. If you want to join us, it's the final bidding process, or you can go bid now. Use the code Rick. There's a link in the description. You'll get a deposit bonus. But only place in the world where Adam Long is a big time mover. I love that. There was also something about Pat Perez, wasn't there? What did I like about Pat Perez? Let's look up Pat Perez. Pat Perez popped up in like my early research for this event. Let's go take a look. I think he's just been much better recently. So, okay. All right. Yeah, I get it. So he's gained strokes on approach in 1, 2, 3 of his last 4 of his last 6. He's been awesome around the green, which is kind of a worry most of the time, but here where little baby greens, you're gonna need to play from around the green often. Perez is coming off a T12, a T26. He hasn't missed a cut in 5 starts. He's missed 1 cut since Phoenix, so he's like 9 for his last 10, something like that. That's not bad. Let's get what's his driving situation? Losing distance and gaining the tiniest bit in fairways. I could live with that. Pat Perez, not so bad either. Let's do the 6K range here. And I'll just keep it sorted in this way, and then we can kind of find guys when we do the custom model as well. So this is last 24 rounds, sorted by strokes gained total. And we got some small sample size stuff here, like Mike Weir's number 1. He's probably got 4. This last 24 rounds probably goes back a long time. Adam Schenk would be the first guy. We were 1 week early on Schenk, right? He was min-priced. Min-priced, loved him in Fort Worth. Misses the cut, although he played well one of the days. He played well Friday, I think. Missed the cut on the number. And then, of course, last week, much more difficult field, much harder golf tournament, much harder course. He finishes 26th. And I actually think, let me look this up. Schenk was on the weekend, I think it was the weekend, was really, really good. Yeah, he was. Okay, so over the weekend, Adam Schenk was the 1, 2, 3, had the 4th best score over the weekend. Adam Schenk. How about that? So maybe we go back to him. So 26th at Memorial, 41st at PGA Championship, 9th at the Wells Fargo. Those are his highlighted finishes here recently. It's now $6,900. I guess I'm going back to it, right? We were early, we whiffed, then we weren't on him last week. I think I got to go back to the guy. What else do we have here? A lot of guys with small sample sizes. But I bet you we can find somebody of note here. I bet you we can. How about... Oh, maybe we can't, actually. Is this a very top-heavy field? Let's sort it by fantasy points gained. Scott Brown, he hasn't played. Shank still no... Okay, boy. Oh, boy. Let's deep dive Luke Donald. That's a phrase I never thought I'd say. Luke Donald on a golf course where accuracy reigns supreme. 191st in distance off the tee, 129th in accuracy. That's not great. But he's 12th in strokes gained approach. Wow, he can still whip it. On approach. Man, look at this. he's just going to lose a ton of strokes off the tee. He's been great on approach. This isn't the worst thing I've ever seen. He's made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his last 8 cuts. He sprinkled in a T16, a T25 in there. Those are his best finishes. It's not great. This is like a jock market guy, right? This is a jock market guy because you're going to get him for a couple of bucks a share. And if he finishes T25 or T26, he wins you a ton of money there. But he's not going to win you anything on DraftKings, and he's not going to win you a bet. But he's playing better than I originally anticipated. He's also the same price as Adam Schenk. How could you go with Donald over Schenk there? How could you? Wow, this is a really bad $6,000 range. Wyndham Clark, this is really sour. Wow, guys. Okay, well, maybe we can uncover some more in the custom model. Let's go over there and run one. Custom model, RickRunGood.com. This is, and actually, if you notice, these buttons at the top are back. Download parameters, upload parameters. I took those away because the tool had started to save itself and all that. It was just I thought it was a good idea. I didn't realize how many people use that. And what you can do is you can download everything, make your updates. You can import any value that you want now to optimize off of. So if you have some crazy calculation that you want or whatever, just go ahead and put it in. All right. So I liked what I did last week. And what I did last week is I just kind of covered the 4 main areas, but I wasn't necessarily tied into strokes gained approach. I could use it if I wanted to, but I could have used proximity. So I kind of like that. It helped me think through it. So let's try that again. Last 20? Let's try 20. Last 20 rounds. Okay, so for the driving categories, let's say, I don't think distance is critical. Let's say 10 on distance, 20 on accuracy. So that's 30 weights on the driving categories. Then for approach, we could do proximities. So what I'll actually do, I'm gonna try to just put 10 on 175 to 200, 10 on 200 plus. There's flaws with this, but I do think there's going to be some longer shots. No. Let's do 10 on 175 to 200 and another 15 on strokes gained approach. There's a little bit of an overlap there, obviously, but that gives us 25 weights on approach play. We could also do par 3 scoring since there's 5 of them, but otherwise, okay. So then for around the green, let's do, which I think is going to be kind of important. These are small greens, right? Let's do 15 on sand saves and then 10 around the green. Again, you see what I'm getting at here? There's obviously overlap, but I'm trying to find the right combination of weighing things. And then putting, let's just do the final 20 on strokes gained putting and call it a day, right? We could have done par 3 scoring. There's 5 of them, something like that. But anyway, this is what we're going to do. And our number 1 golfer is, Justin Thomas. JT. Probably no surprise, right? He's been great across the board. Cam Smith, number 2. Lowry, 3. I'm going to have a lot of Lowry this week, I think. Munoz is 4. Corey Connors 5, Matt Fitzpatrick 6, HV3 7. HV3 will burn me for sure. I will avoid HV3 and he will win this thing. McIlroy, Hadwin, Scheffler round out my top 10. Love that Lowry's in there. Love that Connors is in there. Love that Fitzpatrick is in there. Hate that Varner's in there. Hate that Hadwin's in there. Pat Perez, who is $7,600, is 16th. He is the first guy under 8,900 and he's 7,600. That's noteworthy. Wow. Very interesting. Where's my other 10K guys? Very far down the list. Wow. Oh no, sorry. I scanned right past them. Burns is 10,000. He's 12. So all the 10K guys I think are in the top 12. I'm an idiot. Sorry. I was I don't know what I was looking for. I'm an idiot. Wow. Okay. That was fun. Well, more to come. Wednesday live chat, Tuesday live show betting with Andy. Wednesday night Jock Market Power Hour. Lots of fun. I'm sure there'll be US Open stuff this week. Lots of fun stuff. So I encourage you to subscribe. I encourage you to comment. I encourage you to tweet at me at RickRunGood. Best of luck this week. I'll talk to you guys soon.